We got a packed house today. I like it. A lot of kids in here for the basketball team. I like to see that. It is 8:31 on April 17, 2018, and we're going to start our meeting off with prayer and a pledge. So could I get a City of San Angelo Training and Development Specialist, Joe Hodges?
Good morning, everyone. Would you join with me in prayer? Heavenly Father, we come before you this morning. Father, I thank you for this opportunity that we have to gather before you, to lift our cares and our concerns and our requests before you. Father, I want to lift up each and every group that's represented here today, the council, the staff, the citizens. Father, for the council, I thank you for their willingness to serve this community. Father, I thank you for their willingness to step up and be the leaders that you've called them to be in this community. Father, for the staff, I thank you for their willingness to also serve with this city and to assist in the minute details of what goes on in and behind the scenes. Father, for the rest, for the community at large, Father, I thank you for them that are here today. Father, I pray for each and every group today. I pray your blessing on them. I pray, God, for your blessing on the time. As we gather together for the council meeting, God, I know that you're a God of order and structure, and God, I would pray that this meeting would be a meeting of order and structure. I pray, God, that the things that are said and done would be done with respect and humility. I pray, God, that the reports that are given would be clear and concise. I pray that the decisions that would be made today would be made with the benefit of this city and the citizens in mind. Father, I pray that you would bring peace and order in and through this meeting today. God, we pray for your wisdom. We pray for your discernment. We pray for your direction. Father, most of all, I want to thank you for the love and the grace and the mercy that you offer us so freely through your Son. And Father, as we come before you and lift these requests to you, Father, I know that you will do exactly what we have asked because, Father, as we come before you, we have asked them in the name and the power and the authority of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Our pledge today is going to be a group effort. So could I have the Sassy Shooters, 8 years and under, and the Lady Bulldogs, the 12 years and under basketball teams, and their coaches up here?
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee,
Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Both of y'all stay up here. We have our little recognitions. I'm going to start off. The City Council of the City of San Angelo hereby recognizes and applauds the eight-year-old youth D2 Sassy Shooters basketball team for winning the Texas Amateur Athletic Federation Girls State Basketball Tournament in March of 2018. And also, the Council of the City of San Angelo hereby recognizes and applauds the 12 youth D2 Lady Bulldogs basketball team for winning the Texas Amateur Athletic Federation Girls State Basketball Tournament in March 2018. Coaches, team.
Hello, my name is Michael Adams, and I've been coach of the Sassy Shooters here for a couple of years. And first of all, I want to say thank you to all the citizens, the city, for having us. It's a great honor. Really, these girls deserve this and more. So They've worked so hard. They've been such a dedicated little team, and it's been a pleasure coaching such a great group of girls. They're just eager to learn, such a positive attitude. The parents' support from the city, recreation department as well. It's all been just great. So I introduce them all. First, number 21, Ellie Newland. Away. Number 30, Sophie Hernandez. Number 2, Breland Adams. Number 3, Taylor Thomason. Number 11, Eva Stribling. Let me see if I can get out of the way here. Number 35, Addison Gilbert. Number 1, Zoe Size. And number 24, Alina. Thank you.
Well, how y'all doing? We appreciate y'all showing up today. These girls right here work so hard all year long. It's a good group of girls, good team effort. It drive me crazy. All the above, but my name is Walter Brown. I'm the assistant coach. Our actual coach couldn't make it in today. But our girls here, starting out this way, we just playing. We got Layla Moat. We got Nevaeh Hearn. We got Alexis Long. We got Takia Franklin. We got Alyssa Villarreal. Malia Plummer. Lexi Butts. And Sydney Moore. Thank y'all.
This is National Small Business Week. The President of the United States has proclaimed National Small Business Week every year since 1963 to highlight the programs and services available to entrepreneurs through the U.S. Small Business Administration and other government agencies. America's progress has been driven by pioneers who think big, take risks, and work hard. And small business owners have the energy and a passion for what they do. And when we support small businesses, jobs are created and local communities preserve their unique culture. The ASU Small Business Development Center provides no-cost and confidential business advising and no-cost to low-cost business training to San Angelo startup and existing businesses. The City of San Angelo supports and joins in the national and local effort to help America's small businesses do what they do best, grow their businesses, create jobs, and ensure that our communities remain as vibrant tomorrow as they are today. Therefore, I, Lane Carter, Mayor Pro Tem of the City of San Angelo, Texas, do hereby proclaim April 29th through May 5th, 2018 as National Small Business Week.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, for this proclamation celebrating San Angelo's small businesses. We'd also like to say that we are honored to nominate Mayor Brenda Gunner for the SBA Small Business Champion of the Year Award, and she won. Most of you have heard already, she won. So we want to congratulate Mayor Gunter, and also we want to say thank you on behalf of a grateful city to her, the SBDC, and also the small business community. So thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council, for this.
We'll now enter into the public comment section of our agenda. Issues or items that are not on the regular agenda may be raised by the public at this time. Citizens should speak from the podium, begin by stating their name, and limit remarks to less than 3 minutes. Council members may request that a discussed item be placed on future agenda. The council takes public comment on all regular agendas during the discussion of those items.
Good morning. My name is Lyle A. McClellan-Thie, and I'm a long-term native, actually, resident of San Angelo, Texas, particularly the north part of the city. I like where I live, and I read a recent article that really, gave me some excitement about our area of town because we, unfortunately, don't get usually the first. People don't claim our part of town for a lot of newer enterprises. But I read where a local home builder is developing homes that are reasonable and affordable for people that normally might have to pay rent all their lives. But it seems that they do work to keep the costs low on the land, and some of the obstacles that they're facing are sidewalks, for instance. It seems like newer homeowners is a win for our city and for the homeowner themselves for property taxes and the investment in their property and that sort of thing. So I would hope that the city would work with these home builders and that the issue of sidewalks being required wouldn't be an obstacle for this win-win proposition. And the company that I'm talking about, the builders are Chad Decker and, there's another one. But at any rate, New Homes is the project name. So I feel like this is a good project, especially for the north part of San Angelo, and I really would like to see them able to go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. More public comment? If not, we'll move into the consent agenda. I will start with Ms. Billy, if you have any announcements or any items to pull.
I would like to pull item H.
I have nothing to pull.
Nothing to pull.
Nothing to pull? No, sir.
Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item H?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item H. Consider a resolution finding that AEP Texas Incorporated application to amend its distribution cost recovery factors to increase distribution rates within the city should be denied, and that the city's reasonable rate case expenses shall be reimbursed by AEP Texas Incorporated.
Yes, this item is an item where AEP has asked to amend their distribution cost recovery rates, which would result in increased rates to our citizens. So we're part of a group that's called the Cities Served by AEP. We work together to review and do processes involving the rates. We have been advised by our council to deny these rates so we can go to a rate case. Any of the costs for that are paid by AEP.
So, Ms. Teresa, does that mean that we would have to go to court if they pursue in requesting this rate distribution cost?
It's not like district court. It is a PUC, a Public Utility Commission proceeding, rate-making proceeding that we would go to. It wouldn't be us specifically. It would be our attorneys as representatives of this group of cities. And again, all of those costs would be reimbursed by AP as part of the statute.
Okay, so do they have to demonstrate to us that their distribution rates have increased? Or do we just take their word for? I mean, I agree, we should be pushing back on this. But do they have to demonstrate that, or can they just say their distribution costs have increased?
I think initially when they suggest rates, they just kind of say, these are our new rates, we want to apply, and we either say yes or no to that. When we deny these rates, that's at that point where we get to evaluate what they're actually asking for. So we do an evaluation of that, yes.
Thank you.
I'd move approval of item H as presented.
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. Oh, public comment, please. We did not take that vote. Do I have any public comment for item H? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 6-0. On to our regular agenda. Item A would be consider authorizing the fire department to apply for a staffing for adequate fire and emergency response SAFER grant and authorizing the city manager to execute all related documents. Presentation by Assistant Fire Chief Todd Sanford. Good morning.
Thank you, sir. Mayor Pro Tem, City Council, City Manager. Appreciate the opportunity to ask for this opportunity to apply for this grant. We have a few slides here, and then afterwards I'll kind of give you a little recap of why I'm asking for this and then answer any questions for you. Okay, we're seeking 8 personnel, 4 persons, adding a personnel to our battalion wagon and also adding 1 personnel to our ladder truck. This grant's for, like I said, 8 personnel. The NFPA standard is a national standard that all fire departments all over the United States try to meet their guidelines. And on the NFPA standard, it states that you should have at least 2 on a battalion wagon, which is a battalion chief and an aide. And then on a ladder truck like we have at Central, you should have a minimum of 4 personnel, and in a high hazard area, you should have at least 5 personnel. And that's what these slides right here show, that this is what the NFPA 1710 standard states. So if you approved just letting me apply for this grant, here's what we'd be asking for. We'd be asking to hire 8 personnel. This cost to the city the first year is 25% of the grant, which is $150,000. The second year is also 25% of the grant, which is $150,000. The third year is 65% of the grant, which is $390,000. And that's a total of $690,000 that we would pay for those 8 individuals the first 3 years. As you see on the bottom, the federal government, the SAFER grant would pay $1.1 million over that 3-year period. At the end of that 3-year period, on the 4th year, it would cost us $600,000 to pay for these 4 personnel from here on out, or 8 personnel for here on out. So if we did not apply for this grant, here's what it cost us to get those 8 personnel. We couldn't afford to hire them all at one time, and so what we would propose would be hiring 3 personnel. First year would cost us $225,000. Second year, 3 more additional personnel. The cost for those 6 would be $450,000. Then the third year, we'd hire the remaining 2, and that would be $600,000 from here on out. So the total cost for the 3 years without doing the grant would be $1.2 million. By accepting this grant, if we received it, we would save over $585,000. If we apply for this grant, we can go ahead and hire all 8 right now, and we can have them on the floor working for us in 1 year and 4 months. Compared to if we hired them in a process, it'd be over 4 years before we got those 8 personnel on the floor. Now, I called 11 different departments, and you can see right there on the ladder truck manning, I tried to get departments that were halfway comparable to us. You can see that McKinney, Midland, and Allen are the only three that do not have 4-man on their minimum ladder truck. I'd also like to point out that when you're talking about fire departments, they have what they call mutual aids. And so any of the Metroplex, College Station, Bryan, those departments, if they have a major structure fire or a major incident, they're able to call their neighbors for help. Here in San Angelo, we have no help. We have no neighbors. We have no ladder truck coming nearby to help us. So that's just when you're looking at these numbers, please remember that. We're out here in the middle of West Texas. Our command staff aid in our similar cities, College Station does not have one. Midland is requesting it. Their chief said they were going before council and requesting one. Denton does not have one, and Amarillo does not have one, but you can see all the rest of them do have an aid. So the reason we're requesting this, those were the numbers, those are the facts, but the real reason is, as operations chief, it's my responsibility to keep the citizens safe and keep our personnel safe. And right now, the lack of personnel on the two pieces of equipment that I'm talking about is a safety concern. We have 121 high-rises of 3 stories or above in the city of San Angelo. We have numerous assisted living high-rises here that are full of elderly folks. Our ladder truck has 3 personnel. We're running that $1 million ladder truck like a fire truck, like a pumper, because we only have 3 personnel. We need to run that ladder truck, like a ladder company. That way we can do ventilation, we can do search and rescue, we can do salvage. Right now, with the manpower we have, we do not have a specific company doing ventilation. We do not have a specific company doing salvage. That causes damage to the property because we're not able to put our tarps out. So it's a safety issue, and it's also just being able to run better. The safety issue, that's a big truck. That's a 100-foot apparatus, and with 3 people on it, that's hard to run. The battalion wagon, the reason we're asking for 2 personnel on that battalion wagon is 100% safety. When our battalion chiefs are responding to a call, they're having to watch the vehicles, they're having to watch everything that's going on as they're driving. And y'all know how it is to drive in San Angelo, and just because you have your red lights and siren doesn't mean people get out of your way. So they're focusing on that. Because they're focusing on driving, they're not able to hear what the first-in engine companies are saying. They're not able to look at their computer and see what dispatch is sending them. So when they get to the scene, they're already trying to catch up. And right now, we have no accountability system because he's so focused on putting the fire out or addressing the emergency that there's nobody running our command board. And then we also have a piece of equipment called telemetry. Our telemetry system monitors the firefighters that go inside a burning building. It monitors how much air they have in their bottles. And also, if we need to get them out, we're able to hit that telemetry system, and a little red man comes across the face piece and tells our guys, get out right now. Right now, we're not even able to use that piece of a telemetry. We put it into place about a year ago, but we don't have anybody to monitor it. So it's all a safety reason. I understand this, in 4 years, this is $600,000. This is a lot to be asking. But what we have done since 1999 is focused on getting enough ambulances to take care of our citizens. But as the ops chief, I have to look at what's best for the citizens and my guys' safety, and we just really need these extra 8 people.
I do want to point out that this is authorization to apply for a grant.
Yes, sir.
At this point, city council members, we haven't had discussion as far as an increase in staffing. That'll be coming up during the budget workshops that we'll be having. It's with the understanding at this point that the fire department will be coming forward and requesting these additional 8 personnel. What this grant affords us is the opportunity to take a serious look at that. I know we do have constraints on our budget, but this may be a way to actually get this done. So again, it's just authorization that we're asking to apply for the grant. If later on the city council decides at this point we're concerned 4 years down the road what this may mean for the city, we don't have to accept the grant, but we just want to make sure that we have that authorization to apply for this grant.
Yes, sir. The grant is actually due the 27th of this month. That's why we're coming before. If we get the grant, they're going to give it to us July the 1st, and we have 30 days to come back to council and see if you agree with that process. And then after, if you do agree with it, we still have 180 days to go through the recruiting process. So it's not you're exactly right. We're not asking for these personnel, but I did want you to know why we're applying for it. But it is just asking to be able to apply for this grant.
Questions?
I make a motion that we approve the application of the grant that you're requesting.
Second.
First and a second motion. Any public comment? I like this because it's actually horse before the cart, anticipating what we're going to be needing in the future. We're a growing city. If we're inadequately staffed right now appropriately, then this is great. So if no public comment,
Well,
then I'll...
it's one of our basic any
Exactly.
city's basic function is protection of the public. So this is no doubt that, but it is also protection for our personnel, your personnel. So
I like
agree,
grants. Any financial aid helps.
Yeah.
If not, we got a motion and a second. I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you all very much.
6-0. Thank you. A public hearing and first reading of an ordinance approving case Z18-05, a rezoning from the General Commercial Heavy Commercial CGCH and General Commercial CG zoning districts to the General Commercial CG zoning district located at 4102, 4106, and 4110 Sunset Drive. Presentation by Director John James.
Thank you. John James, Director of Planning and Development Services. This is a shopping center on Sunset. They're currently the CGCH zoning, and for the use that they want to put in, a new use that's going into that site, they want to, or they need the rezoning to the CG. You can see the future land use is commercial. You can see here that the back portion of the property is already CG, but everything up here is currently CGCH. So this would rezone the remainder of the property that's not CG. It would rezone it to CG. We did send out our normal notices, did not receive any in opposition or in favor. Staff does recommend approval, as did the Planning Commission. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
What did you say was going to go in there?
I think it's a school.
Cool.
It's a private school of some sort, like a charter school type.
Any other questions?
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Any public comment? If not, we'll call for the vote. I have no opposition to this. If schools wanting to go in there, then great. Let's let them. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 6-0. Item C, public hearing and first reading of an ordinance approving case PD 18-01, a rezoning from the Ranch Estate R&E zoning district to a planned development zoning district to allow for light manufacturing and production and retail sales and service located at 3409 and 3415 South Chadbourne Street. John James.
Thank you. This is a pre-existing industrial use, but they had some damage from a fire on the property, and in order to rebuild a building on the site, they need the rezoning because it's currently ranch and estate, which doesn't allow the uses that's on there. They are legal non-conforming, so they're allowed to continue that use, but they're not allowed to build new buildings or expand that use without this rezoning. One of the reasons for the PD is they've got a mixture of uses on the property, including the feed-oriented industrial type use, but there's also a restaurant on the site, and so the PD allows that different mixture of uses. It is planned for commercial, but you can see all of this area is ranch and estate right now. You'll note as I get to the conditions in a minute, there is some residential back to the south, and so there's a line of trees mostly along that back side of the property. In fact, it looks more like this, and there's a little gap. So we've asked them to close in that gap by planting a few trees to help screen this industrial use from those neighbors. We did send out the notices. We did receive 1 in favor and none in opposition. I won't read through all of these, but these are the conditions listed in the plan development. Again, most of these are just reiterating things that are already required, but because of the presence of the residential nearby, we have some standards for lighting, hours of operation, that landscaping that I mentioned, and that's about it for those. I can come back to those if you have questions. This does come with staff's recommendation of approval, as did the Planning Commission. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
No questions from me.
I have a question. John, it's not in relation to the proposal to, do the rezoning. You used a term, though, that I'm not familiar with. I think you said legal non-conforming?
Yes.
Is that what does that mean?
Yeah, under the zoning ordinance, if you were in existence prior to the zoning ordinance or prior to rezoning of the property, you're allowed to continue, even if so the non-conforming part means they don't conform to the current zoning ordinance. But they're legal because they were in existence prior to the zoning ordinance. And so the ordinance allows any legal non-conforming use to continue as is for as long as they want. They just can't expand or build new buildings or anything without coming into conformance.
Billy, you often hear the term grandfathered in, and the proper term is actually legally non-conforming.
So John, they're rebuilding with the same uses prior to the fire.
Correct.
It's just getting up to date with the zoning.
That's right.
Okay. Do you have a motion?
I'd move approval as presented.
Any public comment? If none, then I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 6-0. Item D, public hearing and first reading of an ordinance approving an amendment to case SU 17-01, modifying condition of approval number 4 and eliminating condition of approval number 5 for an approved special use which allows an automotive and light truck dealership in the neighborhood commercial CN zoning district located at 508 West 17th Street. John James.
Thank you. This, you may recall, just not too long ago, this property here, it's on Bryant. This is Bryant and 17th. It was rezoned or conditional or special use to allow for car sales on that site. One of the conditions that we recommended was no access from 17th because of the neighborhood surrounding it. We had recommended that their access only come off of Bryant. When they were going to TxDOT to get the approval for a curb cut for a driveway, TxDOT denied it basically because there's an alley here and a street here, and there's not sufficient distance between those two to allow an additional driveway to meet the TxDOT driveway spacing standards. And so TxDOT denied their application. Now, normally TxDOT is required to give access to a property, but that's only if they don't have an alternative access. And in this case, because they could access off of 17th or the alley, TxDOT has said no to the driveway. And so given that they can't get access from TxDOT off of Bryant, we're coming to you asking to amend that condition to allow the driveway off of 17th instead. The other condition, I'll get to that in a second, we did send out our notices, none in favor or in opposition. The other condition is related to landscaping. The original landscaping condition that we had recommended included some trees because of concerns about the trees and birds and things with the cars in the vehicle lot. They had recommended eliminating the trees but planting more shrubs instead, and so we were okay with that, and so that just modifies that condition for the landscaping. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
John, the tree thing is fine with me, the shrubs and everything. But on the access to the place, why can we go ahead and just ask them to use the alley and not the street?
We could. I think engineering, if I recall, had some concerns about accessing from the alley. That was one of the things we had looked at initially. And of course, I think we did have the concern because of the neighborhood around here having that come off of 17th. really the options would be 17th or the alley. There's a concern with loading and unloading the trucks that might deliver vehicles. But it's one of those things, if TxDOT doesn't give them access, they're going to have to either access from the alley or the street. Or one thing that we had originally discussed is if they can't get access off of Bryant, then perhaps it's not an appropriate location for a car dealership in the first place. We believe that with the other conditions that are in place, we're still supportive of that, but that was an
supportive of the
option.
business and everything. It's just the fact that this street is a very narrow street and it's a two-way street, and it may cause,
Sure.
a lot of backup there, and especially in the neighborhood.
John, what were the engineering concerns?
I don't know if there's anybody here that can speak to that. I think part of it was that, the alley's even narrower than the street. It's not surfaced with pavement. It's like a caliche, and so.
Aaron Vanoy, Development Administrator for the city. It's really the surface of the alleyway that you're having those heavy trucks come into the alleyway surface. They prefer not a primary access come in off of the alleyway. They prefer it to come off of a roadway because the new curb cut would put concrete down that would protect the road, and it wouldn't have that in the alleyway. It would just probably, like this one is caliche, and there could be over time deterioration with that heavy truck and
So
traffic.
won't that do that the same thing to our street?
I think there's a potential for that, but they would prefer that streets get much more maintenance than the alleyways. And I think it's really just a recommendation that they would prefer the primary access not come from the alleyway. But I
Who
think
would? The TxDOT?
engineering, the city engineering department.
Okay.
Well, and one of the things about the streets, the pavement for streets are built to handle larger traffic like that.
But the wear and tear of it
There would definitely be wear and tear. Now, the way this is worded, you could not actually do this today. We would have to bring it back to you. One thing I've seen done in other circumstances similar is if they are to access off the alley, requiring the property owner as part of the approval to actually pave that alley and to help accommodate that level of traffic and trucks.
So that's something that we could actually think about asking them to do, is pave the alley and use it for your trucks or for your transportation.
Yeah, now one thing we haven't looked at from the map, it doesn't look like anyone uses that alley for access, any of the homes. But obviously if they bring a big truck in that's delivering a number of vehicles and they use the alley to do that, that's probably going to block the alley completely for some period of time. Versus the street, although it's narrow, at least cars could get around it.
I would question if the alley is even big enough to be used at all for access by a larger vehicle.
And again, that's something we would have to bring back, and if that's your direction, in the meantime, before bringing it back, we would look at those issues. I think because of engineering's recommendation, we didn't delve into the issue of using the alley, so we didn't fully research those kinds of questions.
Are there any easements in the alley that we wouldn't be able to go through an abandonment?
Again, that's something we'd have to look at, if there are utilities in the alley, power lines, anything that might make that problematic, we'd have to look at.
John, I have a couple of questions. And condition number 4, the landscaping, I don't have an issue with, but the condition number 5, the access, I do. I grew up in the neighborhood, so I'm familiar with it. From the corner of Bryant Thruway to where the owner's driveway is no more than 2 car lanes. So if you have those large auto transport trucks, they are going to have to pull pretty far into that 17th Street block to be able to unload, their vehicles. And like you said, it is a narrow street. It has 2-way traffic on it. It has parking on both sides. There are no parking signs. So if you have those transport trucks parked in the street, it's going to be a lot of congestion, and it's right there where you turn off of Bryan Thruway. So since you're going to take a deeper look at, alley access and what the problems are with that, could you take a look at the logistics and feasibly how that would work? Because there's no room to turn around on 17th Street. So if they go into 17th Street, they're going to have to then drive through the neighborhood, to get out. Or if they come the other way, they'll be driving through the neighborhood. And I have, some concerns with that. And, there's a lot of revitalization going on in that particular area. Galilee Community Development, Habitat for Humanity, and there's one other I can't think, but they're building new homes, affordable housing, in that area. And there are some vacant properties in that 500 block of West 17th Street. So, I know this is Lucy's area, and she's raised some questions, but I just have those questions. Logistically speaking, how would that work? So, when you bring it back before us, if you could help me feel better about the logistics of how it could be managed, because I, like Lucy, I do not want to hinder small businesses coming, to that community, because I think that's a part of the revitalization too. But at the same time, we talk about the safety of our citizens, the development of our neighborhood, so I'm concerned about that as well. So, thanks.
Hey, John. Just a real quick couple of questions here. Since I traverse that particular street on a regular basis to get down to North Lily where the Boys and Girls Club is, that transport does not pull into that property. It does pull all the way down on 17th, as Billy said, and unloads the vehicles there, and then they're driven onto the car lot. So really today, that's what they're doing. I'm really concerned about trying to get in that alley. It's first of all, it wouldn't hold up if you had any wet weather. It's very narrow. It's narrower than the street. And that alley would still have to be maintained by the city. Is that correct?
Typically, yes. I mean, we could look at an option of wording a condition that would place that obligation onto them, at least for that portion. If, for example, if they were to pave or concrete that piece, there may be a way through a development agreement to place that obligation on them, but that's something we'd have to look into.
I happen to agree with everybody else. I think we haven't completely done everything we need to do on this, and so I'd like to have this come back with a little more information. But you go down there today, I'll bet you'll see that transport's pulled up on 17th Street unloading vehicles. So,
council members, you do have an option at this point. You can approve on first reading. You have to come back anyway, and with the research done, to determine if, in fact, we have those options available to us. And at that point, if you don't like the options, you can deny at that point. But again, you do have the opportunity right now just to go ahead and approve on first reading and have it come back for the second.
I'm good with that.
We'll move to approve as presented.
Second.
Any public comment? I'll agree on coming back to this. I think we need to look at the easements in that alley to make sure if the residents aren't using it for anything, if we have anything city-wise, that way we can maybe go through an abandonment that way. But if not, got a first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Passes 5-1. Item E, public hearing and first reading of an ordinance amending the budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2017 and ending September 30th, 2018 for capital projects, reimbursements, and grants. Finance Director Tina Dierski.
Good morning, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council, and Mr. Valenzuela. I'm Tina Deersky, the Director of Finance for the city. I have for you today a series of budget amendments that are being requested. The first budget amendment would be for budgeting both revenue and expense for an agreement with the San Angelo Performing Arts Center that reimburses the city for utility costs associated with the auditorium, and that amount is $20,000. The second is for the Sunken Garden Park. This is an amount that was approved by the Development Corporation for funding, as well as City Council, for $75,000 for the design of an art compound there, I believe. Third is abatement fees. This is under Neighborhood and Family Services, and this is simply a pass-through of fees that are being paid for abatements through to the citizen involved with the abatement. Fourth is a fire training class. This is a class that's being conducted by the fire department. They're conducting classes that produce revenue, and they want to budget for both the revenue and the expenditure associated with that class, or those classes, pardon me. WIC travel reimbursement, this is being reimbursed by their federal granting agency. This is associated with some training that they're doing for a new software launch involved with the WIC program. Next is a general fund debt service. This is simply a cleanup of the debt service fund and a drawdown of fund balance that was intended with our 2018 bond issue. Sports Complex Capital, this is a drawdown of fund balance in Fund 203, which are Texas Bank Sports Complex, and the purpose would be to purchase and provide more machinery and equipment to upkeep and maintain this sports complex. Excuse me, and that amount is $249,500. The 2016 bond issue, this is just a cleanup of that account. Initially, the total amount of expenditure was not budgeted for that bond expense, and so we're simply pulling that out of fund balance back into the expense account so that they can use it for continued street reconstruction and improvements. And then the 2018 street bond issue, of course, that's our 2018 streets issue that we have just, I think we received proceeds on April 10th of this month. So, and then of course the auditorium facility improvement fee in the amount of $25,466. This is an amount that was included in the 2014 agreement with the Performing Arts Center, and it is an amount of $2 per ticket sale that comes back to the city and put into an account that is restricted for use in maintaining the auditorium and upkeep of that property. I believe that's it. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them.
I do. Could you go back to the slide before your last one, the one before that?
Yes.
On the general fund debt service,
Yes,
could
ma'am.
you say a little bit more about that? I didn't quite catch all of that.
Yes, ma'am. Let me pull up my sheet on that one. So when we originally, which one are you on? The
general fund debt service, the middle one.
The middle one, yes, ma'am. Okay, so with our 2018 bond issue, when we went out to issue that debt, we intended to, we have a fairly hefty fund balance in the debt service fund right now, and we intentionally intended to pull some of that out of fund balance to alleviate the pressure on our debt capacity rates. And so we're just using some of that fund balance as kind of a front load of the debt issue, kind of like a down payment, if you will, if it was on a house or something like that. And so we intended to pull that amount out of fund balance to front load the debt issue to reduce the pressure on the debt capacity.
Okay. So now the 292 is the expense we had on our debt?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
it's all for debt service payments, for
Okay.
principal and interest on debt.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My question is for the sports complex, the 249. Is that for higher usage that we've been having at that sports complex to be able to?
I think Mr. Roger Havlack might be here to help with that question.
Primarily, as Roger's coming up, that's going to be for equipment. The age of the equipment was bought back, so those things need to be replaced.
Right. Roger Howlock, Park Senior Manager. Yes, that's for replacement equipment. We opened that facility back in 2009, and this will be the beginning of the replacement of the equipment out there. So
It's mowers.
yeah, mowers, tractors, different types of specialized equipment for the site. It's much needed.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve is presented.
Any public comment?
Steve Hampton, that last comment about the equipment, is that equipment just used only at the sports complex, or is it used all over town?
I can address that question. Yes, it's just used primarily just at the sports complex. There's a lot of it's specialized equipment for that specific type of turf that we have at that site, and the
Remind
quality we
everybody
try to keep it
how
at.
big that site is.
Yeah, we roughly have 55 acres of turf grass that we have to mow at that site.
Which is a full-time job for someone.
Yeah, and usually during the growing season, it's twice a week.
Okay. So it would be difficult to be able to utilize that in other places.
Oh, absolutely.
Since it's
No,
specialized turf.
It's
Santa Fe Golf
plenty
Course.
used,
Okay.
yes, sir. It's plenty used there, just at that site.
So do we auction off the old equipment?
Some of it, yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
those funds
As
go
we
back in.
replace, we'll be auctioning either as a trade-in or through the auction service.
Right. Yeah, the big backyard.
Do have a motion and a second. Any more public comment? If not, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 6-0. Item F, update on sales tax revenue performance by Tina Deersky. Tell us some good news.
Yeah, sales tax is up 8.67%. I believe that's the 11th month in a row that we've been seeing an increase in our sales tax revenue month over month in comparison with the prior year. Pardon me, getting ahead of Anthony there. So our collections for April were up about $65,000 over our original budget, and year-to-date, we're over our original budget by about $888,000.
This trickles in from January numbers.
April's would be February numbers,
February
which
numbers,
would be
okay.
rodeo.
Okay.
So, and then, of course, this is the slide that the mayor likes to see with our sales tax by industry. You can see that we have increases in retail and general services as far as industry breakdown. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Good work.
Would have preferred double digits, Tina, but
I
we'll-
know,
we'll-
I'm
we'll
sorry,
take
I
it.
tried.
Mhm.
So close.
Thank you, Tina.
Give us
Okay.
3 good weekends of weather, and we'll make that number go way higher.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item G, discuss and consider authorizing staff to place a speed hump in the 1200, 1300 block of South Madison Street. Presentation by Operations Director Shane Kelton.
Morning, City Council. Morning. Councilman Carter asked that this agenda item be placed on the, or this item be placed on the agenda. Councilman Carter was approached by some citizens a while back that live in the 1300 block of South Madison Street and wished to have a speed hump placed there. We initially ran a study and found that the area did not meet warrants for that. The citizens were very persistent and came back to Councilman Carter and with a petition of the area residents that they had signed, all agreeing to the placement of a speed hump in that location. With that, staff, at the request of Mr. Carter, did run another traffic study. Again, the second time, it did not meet warrants for this. The current policy that we have in place was enacted in November of 2007, and this policy that we have is based on, traffic engineering guidelines that they have laid out. And so that's what it was based upon. Council approved this again in 2007 and set the criteria for the installation and removal of temporary speed humps. And just so everybody understands how much speed humps are, just the cost and installation for this one single speed hump at this location would be approximately $9,400. So again, with the cost associated with them, and then of course the ongoing maintenance costs of them as time goes on, as they are wore out fairly easily because of the traffic moving over them. There is quite a bit of maintenance involved with these as well too. Just for everybody's reference, this is the street segment in question. You can see Santa Rita Elementary here. Down at the very bottom of the screen, you would have Avenue J. So it's this segment right here in the middle that is in question. Just for the speed study data that we provide, that we look at for determining whether we meet warrants, Average daily traffic was 754. This was the one area that did meet the minimum criteria for us to look at this. Of course, when you look at it, you look at your peak time volumes. You can tell that that's definitely school related. So we have a lot of that traffic that is school related in that area. So without the school traffic there, in the summertime, it would probably be hard for this area to even meet that warrant, to meet the minimum of a 500 car per day minimum. 85th percentile speed was 29.8, which is below the posted speed limit of 30. And the 12-month crash history, there was not any crash history in that block segment that was due to speed. So with all of those issues there, it did not meet warrants for the study. So staff cannot justify the placement of the speed hump there based on policy guidelines and based on the approved council policy. If the council so chooses and y'all deem it a variance is warranted at this location, then y'all can direct me to have one placed there as well. So, but again, Mr. Carter, if you have any comments you'd like to make.
Yes, I'm very happy to see this. I've been working with a few constituents, some of them that are here today. I'm happy that they're here to contest, to show exactly why this has been requested. It's been going on for about a year now, and we went through the petition to show how many people were really witnessing this and saying that there is a need. This is a particular situation that's different from many in the city of San Angelo. I know we get a request for speed humps a lot, but in this particular situation, can you go back to the slide where it shows Madison Street? Madison Street takes a curve right there and meets up with Algerita. At that point, midway in Madison going north, the street actually, I don't know where the warrant study was placed, but at that point, it goes downhill to hit the Sulphur Draw, and people are picking up some speed there. And the main concern is right there by Santa Rita Elementary. We have the school-age kids walking to school, and people picking up speed there, and also coming from the northbound, going south, they hit the same thing. They hit the speed, and they go up the hill going towards J. So it is a safety concern in this particular situation because of the structure of that intersection not being a true perpendicular 90-degree intersection where it takes that curve. There are some visibility issues, and like I said, we get speed bump asks questions if we put there a lot.
Yes, sir, we do.
In any situation around the school. So I've talked to Daniel about this before and mentioned it, where maybe we can go through an initiative around every school, dropping speed limits, looking at speed humps, anything that is going to better the safety of our children in that area. But for this particular situation, with the structure of that intersection, I will move to approve as presented on this.
I have a question. Mm-hmm. When you were talking about Santa Rita and all that, y'all have sidewalks over there?
Spares. It's almost like every other area in town where you might have some. No.
I have a question. I know we didn't get a second yet, so is it appropriate to, you made a motion, should we get a second before we start asking questions?
We don't have to. We can
okay.
public comment right now.
You were saying that 1 or 2 speed bumps, because that's really the 1200 block and the 1300 block, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So
the 12 and 1300 is one segment, and based on our guidelines, we have to step back at least 200 feet away from an intersection, a controlled intersection. This is, since it does have a yield sign here, and we do have a stop condition here, we wouldn't be able to place it within 200 feet, so we would come in here about mid-block, somewhere in this area, to place the speed hump somewhere in that general area right there, and it would just be one due to the short segment length of this street right here.
Okay, all right. So, and as was mentioned before, I have had several requests for speed bumps in my district, and I haven't brought them forward because the warrant studies didn't show that, you know, they met the guidelines. So my concern is, what are we going to do? And you may not be able to answer this, and I understand, but and maybe it's a rhetorical question, but my concern is, what are we going to do with all those requests that have been made before? Because they're going to come back. If we approve something, if the council approves something that does not meet the criteria that has been established, then how would we deny any of them?
Comment. I know you remember back in the day when I first started, and that was the one thing that they wanted, and I kept on telling them, hey, it has to be warranted. It has to be something that they definitely say we need. Also, the expense of it is outrageous. Right now, we need to focus more on our streets that need fixing than speed bumps that we know that we cannot afford at this time. Maybe we can come back later and look at it when there's more than just one place that's being approved.
Shane, I have a question. Does the school district get to weigh in on this at all, or is this strictly a city issue?
We actually, and based on the policy in place, we do ask that the surrounding homeowners that are going to be directly affected by this actually, you know, sign the petition in agreement that they do this. This does probably affect the school to some degree, and we would probably, you know, I believe we probably would want to seek their input on it. I do know that the bus transportation director for the San Angelo ISD, you know, I do know that they do have school buses that travel down Madison. So I mean, it could be an effect on them or have an effect on the school district from that standpoint. You know, from buses leaving the school. This is not necessarily a designated bus route. So if it was a designated bus route, that is that is outlined within our policy as well too, that we will not place speed humps on a designated bus route. This, however, is not a designated bus route, but we do know that buses do leave Santa Rita Elementary School and use South Madison as an exit.
Why do we not put speed bumps on bus routes?
We don't necessarily put them on bus routes because as you extend the length of a passenger vehicle to where people can ride over the rear axle, if you hit them too fast, that can cause people to be ejected from the seats. Now, and that's just if they hit them too fast. I mean, you can crawl over them and everything's fine, but no.
I guess I have a question here. If it doesn't meet the criteria that we generally use for speed bumps, could the citizens themselves spend the money to buy one and put it out there? Is there anything that keeps the citizens from doing that?
The citizens cannot, without your approval, cannot do that. They cannot place anything within our right-of-way without
I hate to
council's
set a
approval.
precedent when we're talking about 10 grand plus the time and to keep the maintenance on it, to say that it doesn't meet the criteria. We've got school children in every street, every school in this city that walk on the streets. And so just because the school children at this particular one, this particular school are walking there, that's probably not any different than they are at any place else. Down in my neighborhood, Bel Air is within about 4 or 5 blocks, and those kids walk along that street, and that speed on Medina is higher than it is on South Madison. So,
setting a precedence is the last thing that I want to do, especially in areas with no school. But in situations like this, where you have that limited visibility, you have that downgrade of Madison going towards the draw and people picking up speed there. You have kids crossing right there at Algerita going towards school all the time. The school zone does not hit until that intersection.
On Medina, it's a dead end. I mean, when you're going down Medina, it is a dead end. You don't have the opportunity to go this way or this way. You have to slow down and stop and go 90 degrees either way. So, I understand that we've got to take care of the kids. You know, they're the most precious thing we've got. But we also have to make sure that we do it in such a way that that we're allowing the citizens of San Angelo to not have to foot the bill every place.
Isn't this one way in the mornings? Don't they shut this down and make this one way?
Not this street segment here. We can't see it on the screen
in front of the
here.
school, right, so it feeds down to it.
Well, right, the street right here, running adjacent to Madison, right in front of the school, or just to the north of the school is a one-way.
D? Avenue D?
Avenue D, yes, sir.
Avenue D between Monroe and Madison is where it's
a one-way condition during school hours.
bus drop-off is on Avenue D and they come up Monroe, is that correct?
This,
Yeah.
and
I'm gonna
it
call
is,
for
this
public comment now.
section right here is, I'm sorry, it is during school hours also.
Let's call for public comment. Good morning. How much longer?
My name is Randy Gardner. I've been involved with this petition process and so forth. I'll tell you that we didn't do that lightly, strictly from the standpoint of living on the street, generally having conversations. We have children there, obviously. I don't know whether it's thrilling for people coming from Santa Rita, but one of the biggest problems is people who have dropped off kids at school to come up the hill and around the corner at the same time. Without having any statistic of any sort, without talking about anybody else's street, it was obviously our viewpoint that there was a need for us to slow people down on our section of that street. Of the property owners or occupants who live on that street, 100% signed the petition, with one exception, and they pointed to the stop sign and said, we live by the stop sign, we don't really need a speed bump. So our viewpoint, without having any statistics, is that we need some help from the standpoint of controlling speed, not volume, but speed.
As well, I understand you put a slide at $9,000 for the cost of a speed bump. The cost of a child's life getting hit by a car is, there's no price on that. And my kids alone have been hit, or not hit, have been almost, Yes, my name is London Roberts. I live at 1220 South Madison. I too, with Randy, was gaining support to get this signatures. We had all but one that lives on the stop sign corner that agreed to do this. I noticed a slide that showed $9,000 for the cost of the speed bump. I'll repeat myself that $9,000 is nowhere near to what it would cost if a kid actually gets hit by a car. Your question about sidewalks. One house on that entire block has a sidewalk, and that's it. Everybody else has the street. Just yesterday, I have construction going on at my house, and 4 of my workers were almost hit. Just coming up, the high school kids that come from this slide right here where Algerita comes up, there's actually a stop sign, not a yield sign, that we had put in before to try to divert some of the speed. They're coming down Live Oak, and there's no stop sign between Live Oak and Avenue J. It's a straight hit. So they come down this hill, and you cannot see anywhere around that curve. So there's no crosswalk there until you actually get to the bridge. That's where the school signal actually starts. So there's a very large speed of coming north and south. And it puts not just the children, but everyone that's walking their dogs, that's parked on the street. My car has been hit twice on the street. My trash cans have been hit. My yard's been driven through, and I'm right here on 1220. I'm right where you can't see anyone coming around that curve. So they've hit, and this is at 2 in the morning, so it's not even during a school zone timing. It's just people who are coming up that way too fast. There's no diversion to slow down, and then they slam on their brakes at Avenue J. So the way I look at it, $9,000 is $9,000. We pay for stuff in bonds all the time that necessarily we don't always agree with, but are in the best interest of our city. I think this is in the best interest of our neighborhood.
Correct me if I'm wrong, also at that curve on the inside, at that first house, there's a car parked there many times, is that right?
Yes, right here at 1211.
Yes.
There's a caregiver that's parked there at all times. And then at 1221, her car's been hit twice coming out of her driveway. She's unable to back out. So we've actually had to stop traffic just to get her to back out. I even went to Sam's and I bought those little neon people that stand out with flags. Nothing slows them down. I mean, they're just, it's not just the high school kids. I was in high school too. I did the same thing they're doing. But it's the parents that are dropping them off before school, after school, and then during the summer. There's no school zone there, so it's a race between Live Oak and Avenue J. And it's a cut through from Sherwood Way. So it's very, very dangerous right there.
Shane, would you come back up and show a slide or two ahead of this, what it talked about your traffic count and no accidents and those things? Ladies here talking about trash cans and vehicles and so forth. That would have been one of my questions when we first started this. That was, there you go. No crash history. I guess that kind of conflicts with what the lady's saying here, so I need some further explanation on that.
We asked PD to pull a report of their crash history for the last 12 months, and within that block segment, there was not a crash history within the last 12 months that PD reported in that area. And that's all we can go by is what they do when they pull their records.
Is crash history defined as driver hitting unmanned vehicle also, or two-man vehicles?
I can't answer that question. We asked for crash history in that block segment, for a 12-month crash history in that block segment.
Shane, how long did the warrant study go on?
This warrant study is a 72-hour study, so
Okay.
it basically we put them out Tuesday and we take them up Thursday. We always try to aim for the middle of the week. We can do longer studies, but a lot of times the weekends have especially in neighborhood situations, weekends kind of throw off the numbers quite a bit in that, because you do see a steady decline in normal traffic patterns on weekends.
Shane, is there criteria in the policy for variance, like visibility? Is there anything that's stated in that policy that talks about that?
There's not necessarily anything in our policy for a speed hump that talks about visibility. Speed humps, are a traffic calming device used to, one, slow people down where we do see excessive speeding, which is significantly higher than what we're seeing here. Our minimum warrant for a speed hump is 10 miles, the 85th percentile being 10 miles over the posted speed limit. And so we don't necessarily, from that aspect of it, have anything from a variance or to do it from that aspect of it. Now, there are other, we can utilize other engineering principles as we look at the need for stop conditions and things like that. It may be that we need to go back out there and reanalyze if most of the issues are coming from the lack of, this deal right here with site restrictions in this area right here. We may be able to look at creating a all-way stop condition at this intersection right here to alleviate some of the issues with the site restrictions versus placing a speed hump in that. But that's something that we will have to, we'll have to get the engineering services department to go out there, look at and take some measurements and give us a recommendation at that point.
Corner of Madison where Al drew the house there.
We're ready.
Right there. No, the street the curve actually curves out to make for the bigger intersection there? Would that stop sign be able to be seen, or would we have to put one with an extender arm out?
And again, we would have to look at this on site. We'd actually have to go out on site to actually look at it and look at different angles and variances in that to see what we'd have to do. I believe that stop condition there would be fine. I'm not sure. Just looking at, of course, this is very crude with just, right-of-way drawn on here and not actually seeing what's there, any trees or any other obstacles that may be present. We would have to actually look at that on the ground to determine that. But we could create another stop condition here, and then we could create another stop condition here to where you have an always stop condition at that intersection.
On the inside curve, I'm looking at the satellite image now. The tree that is on the left-hand side of that map, you can see it on that dot, the green dot. It is right up there by the street.
And again, we would have to look at it we would have to have our engineering services department look at it on the ground to actually determine what can and can't be placed there and what from a sign pole aspect of it.
Why wouldn't we do that? Because that would definitely slow people down if they had to stop. So can we look at that? Always stop?
We can definitely look at that and determine, again, it won't be based on volume because it won't meet our warrants for an always stop condition based on volume. But if there are genuine site restrictions in that area, we could place an always stop condition at that location if the site restrictions are there.
Willing to look at that, but still in the meantime, I'm still going to support the speed hump request at this point.
I do want to point something out about speed bumps as well. It's there for a measure like we just mentioned a little while ago that it does supposedly slow traffic down. One of the concerns that I've always had about speed bumps is it does also slow down fire trucks and ambulances that go through there as well. And it really is important. Time is a factor when it comes to those emergency vehicles as well. So that's something, and aside from, we really don't have a budget set aside for speed bumps either. It would have to come out of probably the street budget or something like that. But again, on our end, we just want to make sure we have clarification, and if the city wants to look at that, the city council wants to look at it and establish some type of variances in there. They're not in there at this point, and that's why I asked that question. We just approve or deny based on warrants, and that's what we go by, and speeds, accidents, and so forth. But at this point, we do have several concerns, which are budget, and also it does slow down also some of those emergency vehicles.
We do have a motion. Any more public comment?
I'd just as soon take a look at this traffic study and look at it always stop and bring it back to this particular group and let's look at it from that standpoint.
Would an always stop be something y'all would like to look at? Anything? Right.
Well, the motion's already failed since we don't have a second anyway, so.
Second. So the first motion failed.
I make a motion, we look at possibly, we deny the request for a speed bump, and we pursue the option of looking at this intersection being an all-stop intersection.
I second that motion.
Like they said, I would like to see speed humps, but Steve, we have one more public comment.
Steve Hampton, nothing's been said about police department involvement in this. Has there been any increase in patrol? anything like that been approached?
That's back to our argument on our staffing of our police department. They can't man it on a continuous time period. So staffing elements on that, they might be able to man it and run some studies here and there, but I mean, we can't control it by PD all the time with the number of officers.
Would you please, ma'am?
Answer that question. We did actually have a meeting with Mr. Carter and with this individual here at Santa Rita almost a year ago, requesting the same concern and requesting more patrol in that area. I think for 2 days we had a police officer actually sit there at the school zone, but since then, no. And I understand the manning is very difficult, so this was our next step, was to do this.
Carl White. I live 1 block away. I live 1 block away from this. I support looking at the option of a 3-way stop there. It is an awkward intersection. I can see the need to slow traffic there, but I like looking at the option of the 3-way stop.
Well, I think the speed bump might be a failing initiative at this point, but I'm willing at all odds to get something in place there, so I can support a 3-way. So I will support, Tom, your motion to get something done to make sure that something is fixed in this area. So we've got a first and a second motion. No more public comment. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Pass 6-0. All right, that'll be putting us into closed session. Executive session under provision Government Code Title V, Open Government Ethics, Subtitle A, Open Government, Chapter 551, Open Meetings, Subchapter D. Exceptions to the requirement that meetings be open under the following sections. Item A, Section 551.0711A, consult with attorney when the governmental body seeks the advice of its attorney about pending or contemplated litigation regarding Templeton Construction Incorporated. Item B, Section 551.0712, consult with attorney with the governmental body seeks the advice of its attorney regarding Corby Kennedy. Item C, Section 551.072, deliberation about real property regarding the Ford Ranch. And item D, Section 551.0872, deliberation regarding economic development negotiations related to financial or other incentive to a business prospect. I'm hearing about an hour.
45 minutes to an hour.
45 minutes to an hour. We're in executive session. And we are on Section 8, follow-up of administrative issues. We have one motion that needs to be in place, and I move to waive the subrogation rights for the family of Corby Kennedy.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 6-0. Item B is consider approving various board nominations. Airport Advisory Board, Patrick, how do you say that?
Knighton.
Knighton. SMD 4 to the 3rd term ending October 21. And Robert Frank, SMD 5 to a 2nd term ending October 21. Animal Shelter Advisory Committee, Jenny Wilson, SMD 2 to a 2nd term ending January 2020. Civic Events Advisory Board, Billy Nahara, SMD 3 to a 2nd term ending December 2020. Construction Board of Adjustments and Appeals, Roger Julian at large at the 1st term ending February 2020. Fort Concho Museum Board, Jason Pierce, SMD 1 to a 1st term ending 2021, and Sarah Howell, SMD 2 to a 2nd term ending January 2021. Public Art Commission, Terry Covert, SMD 1 to a 2nd term ending April 2019. Lori Franks, SMD 4 to a 3rd term ending April 2019. And Heidi Meyer-Brooks, SMD 5 to a 2nd term ending April 2019. Zoning Board of Adjustments, Louis Rourke, SMD 5 to a 3rd term ending January 2020. Do I have a motion?
Move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 6-0. Announcements and consideration of future agenda items.
None for me.
I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm good.
Nothing.
Move we adjourn.
Second. All in favor for adjournment, say
Aye.
aye.
You would.
We are adjourned.